Welcome to Gen X Reboot Stories, a YouTube video series for growth minded Gen Xers who are living life to the fullest and sharing their inspiring stories with us. We chat with interesting Gen Xers who are embracing the concept of a Gen X reboot and taking charge of their lives in new and meaningful ways. Through these interviews, we hope to inspire and empower our viewers to take their own steps toward personal growth and lifelong learning. Today, I'll be talking with Seth Thompson, who's become a good friend of mine over the past few years. I'm sure you'll enjoy meeting him as much as I enjoy knowing him. Thanks. Hey there, Seth. Good afternoon.
How's it going?
Good, man. So, this is our Gen X reboot story. And I guess instead of me trying to talk about all the stuff I know about you that I've learned over the last few years as we've walked through the woods, I figure I'll just throw it over to you and let you share whatever parts of your story you'd like to share, and then we'll go from there. So go ahead.
Uh, what are the parts of the story I want to share? First, I want to share that I can't get this fucking camera angle right. That's the problem with being doing what I do is that I can't. I really have never once been happy with how I've tried to light these to look cool, and webcams always just accommodate for the whole scene, and so they mess up your entire trying to light the background cool, and it just blows it out.
It does an amazing job of catching the beach
Oh, I
behind me.
know. I can't believe like you're not getting any wind sound.
I
That's
have
amazing.
I have a wind tunnel on the side of me.
Oh yeah. Uh, I'm sorry. What was your question? Who the
Tell
hell
me your
am I?
story. Tell me your story.
Oh, well, my I'll try to make this as long and painful as I can. But I'm a rural Wisconsin kid who went to the big city of Madison, Wisconsin, uh, because I knew that I was not destined for small town life, and I ended up as an art student, ended up in Chicago, bumbling into the big advertising world. A lot of 20-hour days at Leo Burnett selling cigarettes to minors, and uh, uh, ended up here in Michigan. And I never really liked the advertising stuff. I always wanted to, and selling cigarettes to minors is relevant because a lot, back in the day, you remember, uh, and you'd have to be Gen X to remember, billboards, all the Marlboro ads were like super imagery heavy. And I realized that I didn't like trying to figure out how to put photos into a layout. I wanted to be the one making those photos themselves. And I thought, oh, I hate advertising. And then, of course, as once you become a photographer, you realize like you didn't escape advertising. You just switched which side of the camera you were on with it. But um, uh, full disclosure, surviving spouse of a girl who died of cancer when we were 33, and I had 2 and a 6-year-old kid, and I was like, what the fuck? I was supposed to be the one that died. I'm not supposed to be the surviving one. I'm supposed to be the live fast, die young person because you've been an adult your whole life. I have yet to become an adult. Uh, and honestly, uh, that has informed a whole lot of my entire life since 2005, for better and worse.
Right.
Uh, the ones you remember are always the regretful ones,
Yeah.
but it's on both sides of that.
Well, from my seat, from my perspective, and I've known you now coming up on 3 years, right? Almost three
Maybe
years.
more than that,
And
maybe four.
yeah, you're a pretty badass dad. I mean, the relationship that I see that you have with your kids and from the stuff we talk about seems like you've done a pretty damn good job.
I sent, I texted this. That was, where is it? There we go. That was daddy daughter night with my oldest. He's like, I don't know. What do you want to do tonight? Oh, I have an idea.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and I, I would be remiss if I didn't, because I didn't give my introduction of you, but I call Seth um, the one man variety show because he's so extremely talented from a creative perspective. And one of the things that's been really cool to see is some of the music that he's made together with his daughter. And and actually when he has some of these music videos that he's created where he's got all of his family members in it playing different roles, and it's amazingly creative, and you can just tell that everybody's having a great time. You can probably tell that as you were raising your kids that music and creativity was a big part of that, I imagine.
Yeah, and and frankly, for that reason, I will always look back nostalgically and miss uh, lockdown 2020 because I think I slept the first 3 months of 2020, but really I was just doing music videos around the clock because we're all housebound. And I was like, I can't that's not I can't do that. I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to make this interesting somehow. And uh, to your point about my kids, you saw the helmet video that I did.
Yeah.
I ended that with taking a header over top and into my drum set, dashed my fucking forehead with the cymbals, and my kids are just sitting there filming it on iPhones, and like they have no reaction. They're like, oh well, okay, so it's Thursday night, and I guess we're filming Dad diving into the drum kit. And what's for dinner?
That's hilarious. Well, and I would have to imagine I was probably one of the only few lucky human beings on the planet that got to see you outside of the house because
Right?
we were hiking multiple times a week right as the pandemic was rolling out. I still can remember our conversations about it just being like, oh, come on, what in the world? And then all
Yeah.
of a sudden started to realize it was a little more serious. And then I noticed you would walk further and further away from me every day that we'd get out there.
uh, now in hindsight, we can admit to recklessness. My distance from you on those hikes was specifically because I figured at some point you're going to pull up your phone and film some sort of walk and talk segment, and I need plausible deniability.
Yeah, you didn't want the whole world to judge you as
Yeah,
you're a sinner. You're gonna be
yeah.
canceled because you
You're
walked too
only
close
four
to
feet
some.
from that guy.
Well, and you always wore like three scarves wrapped around your head. I could barely even see your eyes poking out.
That was only when it was single digits.
Yeah, yeah, that was definitely a fun time, and what a weird time to go through too.
I honestly think that everyone's doing the best they can, but the best they can 2023 is not best you can 2019.
No,
I don't think we're okay. Anybody.
yeah,
Uh, and again, we're all doing the best we can, and certainly someone like me and you, by vocation, has to become comfortable with navigating discomfort regularly. Um, and even we are not as okay as we were 4 years ago. And I remember when the pandemic started thinking, hey man, come on in. You guys all just caught up to where I am every day. Oh, you freaking out about what you're gonna do with your life and where the money's coming from? Come on. I loved it. I was like, oh, thank God I'm not the only one anymore.
Well, I mean, I know you say that none of us are fine, but honestly, I got to tell you, um, and like we're all kind of embarrassed to actually say how we really feel about stuff because there's always larger ramifications and other people don't have the same input. But I love my life since the pandemic, and I loved a lot of the stuff that came along with it because I think it forced a lot of us to do a lot of self-reflection and identify not only who we were, and because we were forced to be with ourselves and forced to be with people we were really close to, but I think it gave us an opportunity to evaluate those relationships and those situations and hopefully make them stronger. I mean, heck, you and I mean, we just did a video project at one point, and now I consider you, a really good buddy of mine who I enjoy spending time with and talking. I'm not sure that that would have happened if it wasn't for, you being forced to only have your human contact outside of your four walls with me out walking in the trails, right? So,
Well, and also I was lucky enough to have been getting divorced at the time, so I've got nothing but time and
yeah.
nothing nothing making me think I should stay in bed a little longer.
Yeah, I loved the fact that at the moment when everything got shut down, when I came to that moment of realization that my competitors were not eating my lunch at that moment and nobody was eating anyone's. It was like competition neutral. And it was like, oh my God, for the first time in like 2.5 decades, I actually feel like I can breathe again.
Yeah.
And yeah, it brought a lot of good to me. I mean, if we could eliminate all the death and mental anguish that people went through and just take all the goods, because look at the way we prioritize people in their value now so much differently and better than we did. Like we probably used to make fun of people in the fast food uh, industry until we couldn't have it. And then we recognized that, oh my gosh, maybe every human being matters, regardless of the level of contribution that we want to say they,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
I think that I would say the same thing. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we could have come to this without the death and instability and borderline economic collapse?
yeah,
Nobody comes to this shit unless their own mortality or the roof over their head is under threat.
yeah,
And even before you said that, I was going to say like the pandemic was also took me back to 2005. We're all social creatures. Eventually, you grow your filters back, but for years after my wife died, I had no. It's hard to maybe for you to believe that I have filters, but uh, this is the socially acceptable version. I lost them all, and there's nothing cool about losing your spouse, especially at a young age. But if you're forced to find a silver lining, it's that your fucking bullshit detector is sharp, and you quickly are taught what actually does and doesn't matter. And anyway, my point is that when the world shut down, I saw a lot of people like have that same realization. I was like, yeah, once again, here's the non-sarcastic version of come on in.
right.
It's actually kind of cool in here. Uh, and then the world opened back up and you saw that most people, like a rubber band, went even further back the other way, where it was all about consumerism and right back to the same stuff. But it did stick with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know really where you were at because before the pandemic, we had done a couple of video things before then and not much else. But certainly my experience of you is that maybe that's what changed it. Maybe you've always been that way, but you are now someone, and maybe you always were, but you're someone who uh, tries to get to the truth of it as egoless as possible.
Yeah, well, and that's really hard because I mean, I'm sexy as hell.
Right.
And to try to ignore that,
Yeah.
it's difficult, but thank you.
No, I'm screenshotting this conversation right now to go in the hidden folder on my iPhone. So I know all about how sexy you are.
No, man, I appreciate that. But yeah, I would say that there has been that I've gone through a lot of changes in a good way since then of just like really, you're right, get into the heart of it. Like there's I think for the long, it's really easy to get stuck in the trap of again, and you and I have talked about this a bunch, but trying to tone ourselves down so that other people are more comfortable or whatever. And
I've
in
been burned
in
burned
doing that
so
is
many times by that.
yeah, but and it just sucks because it's like I'm going to reduce the amount of value that I can provide to the world because I'm not sure the world can handle all the value that I can go. It's like, I mean, I look at it from the ego side and it's like gross,
I'm
but
sort of on
there's
the flip side of that, where I would say exactly the same thing, but I would replace, because the world can't handle how much value I have. I would replace this with I'm just either I'm simultaneously too much and not enough. Like I don't fit, and I know that, and I just would like to not cause an argument
right. Yeah.
because I know who I am, and it seems like that's just a little too out there.
Well, but I think the fact that you think that it's way out there is probably what the majority of the people that see you go, that dude is cool. Because no everybody likes people that are like characters, right? That are not afraid to be. And I think that is more of an attractant than anything else. But again, not if you don't feel that way. Not if you're feeling like, like it's not a good thing and that you want to fit in and whatever.
Right.
But
Well,
yeah,
that
it's a constant struggle.
in the that video series I started recently, I now only have two in the can, but both times in various ways that exact subject has come up. And I just did one this morning about this morning. I was talking to the painter Chemo and his process and blah blah blah, and that that always ends up coming up with, of course, everyone aspires to not give a shit what anyone thinks. Everyone actually cares how they're perceived.
Right.
The the trick is to take that perception into consideration and never let it decide what your next step is. But thank you. I'm now aware of what that perception might be, but I'm still going to do this solely for myself. And y'all can come along if you want or not, because I don't care.
Right.
I'm just going to do this. And and I think in our conversations hiking, but also in these interviews that I've been doing, it keeps coming up because one, when I'm interested in, I'm interviewing these interesting people, I want to know about what it is that they do, but really it's just an excuse to get to know someone that I think is interesting that I don't know yet. And the whole point is not how you apply that to your vocation, but how is what you do with your vocation relevant to your life? And it always, so far, has come down to the decision to shrink yourself or not.
Right.
It always comes back to that. And every time, including for myself, as you know, as a business owner, success or failure is not it's not a straight line. It's all over the place. And when it's down here, it's usually because you tried to guess what somebody would want from you and shoehorn yourself into that. And every time uh, you don't care about that, then that's when the financial success happens. Uh, I guess I've already sworn plenty of times in here, but every every professional success that I've had in my life the last 2 minutes of Rage Against the Machine's Killing in the Name has either actually been playing or it's been running in my head. Just the fuck you, I won't do what you tell me
Uh-huh.
line over and over and over again. And every time I take that attitude, I got I got no material worries.
Yeah.
And every time I take less than that attitude or try to fit in, I'm worried about like, can I pay the mortgage this month?
Yeah. I I've been thinking about that a lot lately because every once in a while, like, because I feel as though I really have been doing what I love since I really found out what I loved, right? But you still have those moments where I'm like, but but what if nobody wants to, or what if, or what if, or what if, and you can like feel your energy level start to get zapped out of you. It just starts to go down. But then I just remind myself, like, don't even think about it, just do what you love to do, and then you get back on track and the energy immediately fills back up. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that's it, like, because we think that money or some type of outcome is the thing that we're really doing it for. But maybe that's not what maybe that's the reward system that we've been taught that we should look at. Maybe it's just if we're having a good time and laughing, and like, so even sometimes when we're hiking and it's like, we've been out there when it was -10 before,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't care. We weren't like crying and moaning. And I mean, after probably 13 minutes, we were fine. And in the beginning, we might have said, what are we, crazy? But we loved it. And it didn't, like, that. Who cares? Like, nothing. Sometimes it's just about enjoying and loving what it is that you do.
Mm-hmm.
But we talk about that stuff all the time. The trail brings out all kinds of those deep conversations.
Well, like I said, this interview series that I started, I've only got a couple shots so far because I literally just started it. But even today, when Chemo was asking me, well, what are you hoping this will do? I could I could feel myself start to go like this
Yeah.
just in trying to answer his question because well shit, now I have to have an outcome in mind. I don't fucking know. And so and then the energy came back up when I realized and said out loud, uh, this whole thing is so that I can find interesting people and talk to them for an hour.
Yeah.
That's it. And I'll throw it out there, and if anyone wants to watch it, cool. But I, but even in starting this group, if if I was in your position, I'd be having the same thoughts. We're like, well, this is a really cool idea. Nobody wants to see. No one wants to hear from. No one wants to watch these two fuckos talk about anything. Bunch of old 50-year-old. I already said fuck too many times.
That's right. But do
Yeah.
we care? Does the outcome of this conversation that we're recording, we put it out in the world, do we really give a shit?
Well, back to what I earlier said. I think at our core, yeah, we do.
Mhm.
But if it turns out we were wrong, it didn't change whether we were going to do it or not. It just changed what we thought the general interest would be.
Yeah. From my perspective, it wins on either level. So
Yeah.
if it is awful, people are like, what did I just spend my time doing? I could do a much better job at that. Or they're like, these guys are ridiculous. I should do something because I can do it way better. I mean, there's lots of whatever way it appears. Like, hey, we're out here sharing things that are deep inside of us because we're not adopting the more boomer side of our personalities of clamming up and putting on a facade or a mask. We're actually going, here it is. This is what's happening inside. Because we know that there's a bunch of other people that are Gen Xers in our same exact position that are struggling with the same things that we battle with every day. So why not create a forum for us to all talk about it?
Yeah.
So when
And
you
go ahead.
when oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm not sure I had anything to say.
Oh, okay. When you think about the concept of Gen X reboot, what does that mean to you?
Just speaking before I have the chance to think about it too much, to me that just seems like we're now at the age where we, whether we feel this ourselves or not is this maybe a separate point, but certainly we've been shown or taught indirectly at least that now is the time where you're you're basically just running out the clock professionally at least,
Uh-huh.
so that you can finally not have a job and enjoy your retirement. And first off, age 50 in 2023 is not what age 50 was in 1983. So
No.
that's a whole different thing. But also for me, and knowing you and all that stuff, here this Gen X reboot to me means who cares how old we are. I'm just now getting comfortable with saying how old I am, but uh, because I don't in any way feel like that age, and here's a group that's coming together that probably largely also feels like that and isn't necessarily just looking to what their retirement activity is.
Right.
They're looking to, probably find a better work-life balance, whatever that means to the individual. But uh, now's the time when typically you and I get girlfriends or convertibles or both, uh, and instead, and this is why people got girlfriends and convertibles, because now's the time where you're like, well, has my life up to now meant anything? Am I fulfilled? Oh, look at that. It turns out that money's not the big thing I thought it was because I got plenty of it and I'm miserable.
Yeah.
And so then they start to reprioritize. But I think at least people like you and me, we've been thinking about it the whole time, probably. And I know for me personally, as a creative, I always felt like, oh, I'm safe. I'll never have a midlife crisis because I have those about every 18 months since I was age 18. And then there's a new version that comes up after that that's not the same as the 18 months ago person. I don't know that I'm immune to it, but my point is I've been having them the whole time.
Yeah, just mini ones.
Yeah. Yeah, just to flex that muscle and get you ready to compete.
Yeah. So here's a crazy question because I know you, but can you think of a time that you took a risk or made a really bold decision that ended up resulting in like personal growth, a huge lesson that you learned or anything like that?
Um, yeah, several. The first one being, uh, I didn't actually grow up on a farm, but we lived in a farm town. Madison, Wisconsin might as well have been New York City in 1989. So that was a big one. I went there specifically because I know I'm not going to know anyone there. Uh, the next one I can think of uh, is I moved over here to Michigan in 2006 after being a freelance graphic designer for 12 or so years, something like that. I never, I never didn't have plenty of work. I just would word of mouth bounce from place to place. So moving from Chicago in 2006, it looked like Grand Rapids was giving away $1 million houses for free. I was like, well, I'll take one. Cool. Oh, look, there's the Meyer May house right across the street from us. Cool. Uh, Not realizing at the time that Michigan was the only state in recession, and that's why the $1.5 million house was only 270.
Yeah.
If I was not an idiot, maybe I would have looked into that a little bit. But anyway, so we moved over here. Grand Rapids or West Michigan's in recession. I don't really like being a graphic designer and art director, not getting the freelance gigs that I thought I would. Oddly, the Grand Rapids creative community didn't really like outsiders, and maybe still doesn't. I don't know, but anyway, I'm not making enough money, and I was like, well, I mean, I can make $0 at anything I want. Like, why not just say I'm the thing that I'd rather be doing anyway? Because $0 is $0. And boom, a photo career was born.
Instantly successful.
Yep.
Amazingly.
I went from 0 to 12,000 a year in no time.
But when you're shooting something or creating something, I bet it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like $12,000 a year, does it?
Oh, no. No, and some years I'm in the 1%, and some years I probably should be applying for whatever the SNAP program is or whatever. And
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be much of a middle ground, but even on a smaller scale, even in shooting over and over and over again, I'll give you another example, and that is with a client that I used to have, which was a cancer hospital. I took some awesome photos of cancer survivors, and we happened to be shooting at roughly sunset. They were gorgeous photos. And they're like, oh, we love these photos so much, but we're a cancer hospital, dude. You can't take photos of sunset because of the metaphor. You can't do that.
Uh-huh.
And not only with them, but I've done it with other people too, where I was like, okay, well, we've got what you said that you wanted, what you think that you want. Now we're going to shoot what I want to do. And of course, I don't say this out loud. I just do it. Uh, and in the case of that client, I was like, well, I mean, this is going to turn out good, but I guess this is the last time I work with them because I'm I'm going out of my way to do specifically what they said not to do.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to be fired, and that'll have to be okay. Uh, Zero exceptions. They always pick the one that I know was not what they asked for, but this is what I thought should happen right now, every single time.
Yeah.
And it's cool that it's good that we also have the safer versions, but they were thinking from a safety standpoint, probably created by committee, so it's going to be the bland version. And I'm thinking we can make this cool, even though it has absolutely nothing to do with what you asked for. And that's the one that they consistently across the client base, that's the one that people pick.
Yeah. So it sounds like whenever you get to fully express yourself in the maximum value way, it provides the maximum value whether
Yeah.
they thought it would or not, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. And if we didn't already have their safety versions, I probably would be a little, I might be a little less courageous in going off the deep end, but we already got the safe stuff. So
Right.
now let's go crazy. And I think that it's with everything that we were just talking about, and this came up today with my interview with Chemo, and that is that even when people don't know that they know when you were not all in.
Right.
They know when you're either being cautious or you're bored and you don't really care. They don't know that they know that, but they know it. And in visual imagery, I saw it over and over and over again. I hope the client never saw it, but my unofficial job was meet people I've never met before and in 48 hours will never see again, and have a authentic connection with that person that by the time I leave, it feels like we've been friends for life. And by the way, I brought a camera because we have to take a few pictures of you.
Right.
I noticed every single time that didn't happen. The photos, and it's not something that I could articulate and put my finger on, but the photos or the videos are just not, they're not as good.
Yeah.
And when you do make that connection, that's when clients pick the sunset version, even though they specifically told you not to do.
Yeah.
So I think people know.
Yeah. I think so too. I think there's a lot there's a lot to do with just the energy all around the connection, all around the work and the alignment and everything else. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges with even running a company is trying to regulate that energy and make sure that it's all melded together, especially when you have more and more people that you work with, because it just becomes more and more challenging. I mean, I remember when Mindscape was twice the size that it is now, maybe a little bit bigger than twice the size that it is. And I remember the number of headaches that you'd have to deal with because of it. I mean, I mean, high school was clicky, but so is a company of 30 people. Like
Right.
it just
Yeah.
gets ridiculous, you know. And then pretty soon, all of the juggling and all of that stuff that you have to do, just again, it sucks out that value because you have to tone yourself down to be able to play within the confines. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah.
So from a self care perspective and in just maintaining mental and emotional health, what are some of the things that that you do to try to mitigate stress and overwhelm and all that stuff?
Well, there's plenty of things that I do that would go on the cautionary tale side of things. Don't do those things. Those things are well documented as not good coping mechanisms. Uh, but um, but on the positive side, um, as you well know, getting out, preferably first thing in the morning if possible, for a minimum 4 miles of elevated heart rate walking, preferably in the woods. I recently went through a extremely rough patch, and I resorted to calling my mom to just talk to somebody get the to get this to stop. And my mom said, "You need." And my mom is not a "you should" person. She's not a person that does that. She's like, "Listen, I've known you for all of your years. At the risk of telling you what to do, you need to get the fuck outside every single day. Mandatory minimum half an hour." We've all watched that over and over and over the years. The Not only the effect that has on you in a positive way, the effect it has on you when you don't get that.
Yeah.
So that's the main thing. And then also, uh, and I don't think I told you this, but I convinced my daughter to start doing that. And I thought, well, yeah, go for a morning walk with dad. And she's like, nah, I'm going to start by myself. That's how I'll really do it. That's how I was like, oh man, starting by yourself, that sounds like a recipe for being able to tell yourself, well, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no accountability. But she she did that like 3 times last week on her own. and it's not, I don't think she's walking to the extent that you and I do, but doesn't matter.
Right.
She's getting out there. And I just saw on Instagram this afternoon, she got her brother out there too
That's
today.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's such a healthy and easy, all of us can do it, right? And it's so
Yeah.
rewarding.
Yeah. Unless you have, are got a bum knee or something like that.
Yeah. Then
And
you
I
just
don't,
then you can just limp.
right. Well, you said it. It's funny that you called hiking church with Pete because that's what my dad has called it his whole life. His name's Jim. And he's like, oh, I got to go to church with mom, but I'd rather just go to the church of Jim, which is go out in the woods and just sit up against a tree for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Just basically just sit there. Well, he's a big walker too, so he would have been moving. But for him, the best church is to just go sit in the middle of the woods and listen to the birds and the wind.
Yeah.
And he ain't wrong.
Right. Yeah. It's very, very healthy.
And then on the flip side of that, just being creative every single day if at all possible. And as you know, that could take any form, but just make sure that you made something kooky today.
Yeah.
That helps.
That's awesome. Is there anything else that you would like to cover before we come to a close? Any tips? Anything that you're working on that you want to share? Anything at all?
Um, I don't think I will ever have any advice for anybody, so I have no tips. But I was looking forward to seeing what this group does, and I guess what I'm working on right now is in addition to lots of commercial projects. I think that this I my daughter said, "Oh, you started a podcast," and I didn't. That was not in my intent, but maybe that's what I did. This series, cool people doing cool shit, I think has some real potential, even if it's only just for me personally. Uh, I well, here's the closest I can come to a tip. I have noticed throughout my life that as when you say, "I have this idea, I'm going to do it," we're not vetting the quality of that idea for even 1 second. I just have this idea that I think I should do, so I'm going to do it. And you guys can come along or not, doesn't matter. I'm still doing it. I'll stop short of saying I believe in the law of attraction, but holy shit, dude. All the good stuff comes in when that is the attitude. And as soon as you say, oh, I wonder what I should be doing, you're just watching, you're a puppy watching the front door for an owner that never comes home.
Heck yeah, man. I agree with you 100%. I know that you mean that. And that is like, that's a powerful realization to be able to come to. I'm not sure I'm even fully there yet, but I like hearing you say it because I think it's important to remember that because it is way. I told you just yesterday. I was thinking about some stuff that I was working on. Maybe I wasn't telling you this. I could have been telling someone else, but like I started to, have that doubt creep in, and then it was like, no, just go have fun, and had to redirect. But as long as those occurrences become further and further apart, that will be helpful. But I couldn't agree more, and I think that's a great tip to give to all of us because hell yeah, man, who wants to feel the ick of not? All right. Well, hey
Yeah.
man, thank you very much, and
Thank you.
make sure you share your cool people doing cool shit episodes over there in the group because I'm sure people will love that. And that's it.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, man.
Well, thanks.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of our Gen X Reboot Story. I hope this story has inspired you to move at least one step closer to embrace personal growth and lifelong learning. Remember to prioritize your mental and emotional well-being and take time for self-care. Share your own Gen X reboot stories in the comments below. See you in the next episode.